Okay, so the next game that we're going to check out is a Super Nintendo game. And as you can see here, this is another cult favorite, a Halloween hit, Super Ghouls and Ghosts for the Super Nintendo. Let's check this out and see how good it is. See if it's good as the Sega Genesis version, Ghouls and Ghosts. Okay, so we're going to be playing Super Ghouls and Ghosts on the Super Nintendo. And I previously played Ghouls and Ghosts on the Sega Genesis. So as you can see, there is a huge introduction for the Super Nintendo. As you may notice right away, the sound effects sound a lot better than the Sega Genesis because the Super Nintendo has a better sound chip than the Sega Genesis. Of course, the Super Nintendo has the ability to have nicer looking sprites. So some people may consider this game to be prettier than Ghouls and Ghosts on the Sega Genesis. Now, I personally love this game on the Sega Genesis. It's very addictive, very hard. Not as hard as the Sega Genesis version in my opinion, but it's still pretty hard. As you can see, it's almost appears to be almost the same as the Sega Genesis version. I mean, it's not the same, but it's like the same type of gameplay. Same concept, except in this version you can double jump. The Sega Genesis version you cannot double jump, which is a shame because that would have been cool. The graphics do appear to be a little bit nicer on the Super Nintendo version. And the music, of course, is a lot nicer. Now the enemies in the Super Nintendo version of this game do appear to be a little bit slower, and as you can see, you get turned into a baby. Instead of on the Sega Genesis version, you get turned into a duck. So sometimes when you open up the treasure chests, you can be pranked, you can be fooled, and they can actually turn you into a baby or a duck, something like that. Instead of getting your weapon upgrades or your armor upgrade. Now the map layout before you even go into the game also looks nicer. As mentioned before, the enemies do appear to be slower than the Sega Genesis version. The Sega Genesis version has like these Grim Reaper looking guys, while the Super Nintendo version has these little zombies, so it's easier to, escape them. Plus you can double jump. In the Sega Genesis version you can't. And it makes it a lot harder because these enemies in the Sega Genesis version run a lot faster than the Super Nintendo. Now as you can see here, we have a little lag, which goes to show you that as pretty as the graphics are and as good as the sound is, Super Nintendo does have a little bit of issues with on-screen animation. So yes, the Sega Genesis can handle a bit more on-screen animation than the Super Nintendo does. In most cases, there's a couple of games that were released on both Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis that definitely prove that the Genesis has the better advantage over on-screen animation. Nonetheless, this game is awesome.